Welcome back to the Retirement Fiduciary Podcast, your classroom for no BS financial education. A place where we have authentic discussions about retirement planning, investment management, tax reduction strategies, insurance estate planning, and more. Here's your host, Adam Koos, President, Portfolio Manager, and Senior Financial Advisor at Libertas Wealth Management Group.
Hey everybody, today we've got Adam Zuckerman on the podcast. He's the founder of Buried in Work, a leading e-commerce platform that specializes in estate planning, organization, end-of-life tasks, and estate transitions. With a deeply personal motivation stemming from his experience managing his father's estate, he's created a system that simplifies these complex processes for individuals and families nationwide. As an Eisenhower Fellow, attorney, and MBA, Adam brings a wealth of expertise to his role, combining both legal knowledge with entrepreneurial vision to drive innovation in the field of estate planning. His mission is to empower individuals of all ages to navigate the intricacies of estate planning with confidence and ease. And through Buried in Work, his company, he seeks to revolutionize the way people approach end-of-life preparation, ensuring that everyone has access to the resources they need to secure their legacy and protect their loved ones. After my brother passed away unexpectedly, we created our My Promise kit for my family and then our clients, and I briefly explained this process in this episode, but I've got to be honest. What Adam's built has expanded upon what we're doing at our office, making life even easier for the average person when it comes to estate planning prep, all while reducing the negative procrastination statistics that drive me absolutely crazy when it comes to this stuff. So sit back, relax, and be a sponge as you're about to learn some things that you need to know about a big financial planning task that most people put off, neglect, or both. All right, everybody, meet Adam Zuckerman, the compassionate visionary behind Buried in Work. As the founder of this groundbreaking e-commerce platform, he's not just transforming estate planning, he's on a heartfelt mission to simplify and elevate a deeply personal journey inspired by his own experiences managing his father's estate. His dedication shines through in his commitment to empowering individuals and families across the nation. So this is going to be a fun talk. Adam, thanks so much for jumping on the podcast.
Great to be here, Adam. Thanks for having me.
For sure. I'm just going to jump right into it. And this might be both you and I kind of sharing a quick story. And you know, you and I just recently met. So tell me about that personal journey that you went through that led you to establish Buried in Work. You know, you don't know this yet, or maybe you do just from researching us, but we have a similar story. Mine's about my brother. Yours is about your dad. But tell us about how managing your father's estate shaped your vision for simplifying estate planning processes.
Yeah, before I started Buried in Work, I didn't expect that this would be the industry that I'm in. I'm an attorney. I have an MBA. I've worked in big companies like Anheuser-Busch and Discovery. I've worked in finance at a hedge fund, clean energy, a bunch of other things. And 6.5, 7 years ago, my father was diagnosed with leukemia. I actually donated bone marrow and got him a little bit of extra time. It relapsed once. And then a little while ago, more than a little while ago now, he was over at my house doing woodworking in the basement. And he said, "I'm tired." And that's a really big flag when you have leukemia. It's a blood cancer. He went to the doctor's office, checked him into the hospital on a Thursday, and 12 days later, he passed away. So far too quick. We were fairly lucky in some ways. We got to say goodbye. He was able
How old was he?
72.
Yeah.
So too early.
Still too young. Yeah.
Yep. And 3 weeks before he passed away, he was walking around totally fine. Like up until the day before he passed away, he had all his, mental capacity with him. So it was interesting. The good news is that he was able to meet my sister's kids, build a relationship with them. He got to say goodbye. People were able to fly in. All the things that you'd want, other than like a heart attack, and you miss all of those activities. Still too soon. So we thought he was organized. I thought he was organized. He thought he was organized. It turns out he wasn't nearly as organized as anybody had hoped. We've since learned that on average in the United States, it takes over 570 hours to administer an estate. And I don't know about you, Adam, but wow. I sure don't have 570 hours just to throw at something, and most other people don't. So as I was stepping into that, initial tranche of work, I started taking really copious notes of everything I was doing. So drawing on the legal background, drawing on the business background. And when I went to my mom's financial planner to show her what I was doing to transition all the assets to make sure everything was up to speed, at the end of the conversation, the response was, "This is the most comprehensive transition I've ever seen in my life. You have to give this away to other people."
Nice.
We spoke to some people. I've got a tech background as well. We created a website. And the next thing we knew, literally within a week, we had tens of thousands of visitors to the site. And the need is unbelievably there.
Huge.
We set out on a mission. We want to give do-it-yourselfers free resources, whether it be checklists, guides, information, databases, lists, directories, you name it, games even, to go through one of three phases. And those three phases are estate preparation organization, end of life tasks, so simplifying those tasks before and after somebody dies, and then estate transition and probate. And what we found is that we are consistently providing resources that people need in a way that they're not used to getting it. And it's been a really fun and compassionate journey. And I didn't expect to do it. It's not just me. There's a lot of people working on it, and we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. It's there's obviously certainly people who don't want to deal with it. They'd rather hire an attorney, but there is a lot of people, and we've seen them in our office, people that are, whether it's because they have time on their hands, whether they are closet control freaks, whether they are trying to save money versus paying an hourly rate for an attorney, or they just like doing stuff like this themselves. I think that there's a huge market for this, and an enormous number of people that this would help. And the statistics, I'm really passionate about this, by the way. So we get a lot of people who reach out and talk about, doing a home and home, as we call them. So I'll be on their podcast, they'll be on mine, and we'll talk about whatever we talk about. But as soon as you reached out or your staff reached out, it was like immediately, yes, we're doing this, because, the stats go like this. 58% of people don't have their passwords organized.
Yeah.
47% of people don't have an advanced healthcare directive.
No.
72% don't have a comprehensive estate plan. 30% of people with an estate plan, if they have one, don't know where it is, like where their documents are. And then 54% of people haven't even told their trustee or executor that, hey, you're our trustee, you're our executor. And then, and then there's the stat, I don't know what the stat is, but of the people who actually do have an estate plan, there's the question of, do they know what's in it? Has it been updated? On a daily basis, we meet with people, new clients that come on board to hire us, who it's the number one most procrastinated item. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because who wants to talk about the end of their life, And then, but it's also one of those things where if they do it and they're, I'll call them a rock star, because honestly, if you've done the preparation, you are a rock star. I think it's amazing that you've done it at all. But then it'll be, well, my kids are 34, 36, and 41, and I have guardianship provisions still from my estate plan that was set up 23 years ago. And I don't know about you, but I don't think Aunt Jill, wants to take care of the 41-year-old. Nor does the 41-year-old want to be, well, maybe they want to be taken care of. I'm not sure. But anyway, this is the most I'm going to talk here. I normally don't talk much on these podcasts when I'm interviewing somebody else, but my story is similar to yours. And I just want to share it briefly, where almost 7 years ago now, August 19th of 2017, my brother, who was 13 months younger than me, was up in Cleveland. I live in Columbus, but we're from Cleveland, was driving his motorcycle home, a really, really hot, humid night in Cleveland. He'd had not much sleep the night before. His friend was riding his bike behind him about maybe 500 feet, maybe a little less. And all of a sudden hit a straightaway. The drone of the bike just put him to sleep, and he literally fell asleep on the motorcycle, went off the road and was killed instantly. And my experience was just like yours. I'm not going to give the long version here, but the Cliff Notes version is that when I went up being the financial guy in the family to kind of help put this puzzle together, unlike your dad, my brother was not the biggest planner in the world. So we didn't even think he had things, put in order, but we found out that, or I found out that even though I thought I was a rock star because I have guardianship provisions for my kid, a testamentary trust, living trust, powers of attorney, healthcare directive, financial powers of attorney. So I thought I was the man, right? No idea how to get into his laptop. He was divorced. Nobody knew his passwords. Couldn't get into his phone, which was destroyed in the accident because all his family videos, pictures were in iCloud. Nobody knew that password. Couldn't find his life insurance. I knew he had life insurance. When I finally found it, he had not told anybody. He'd just been laid off 2 weeks prior. He was a mechanic and he worked at AutoNation as a Ford mechanic. He'd just been laid off. Life insurance lapsed. 401k, there was almost nothing in it. Couldn't find the deed to his house. Couldn't find the titles to his 3 cars. So I'll stop there. But bottom line, it was a total mess. So when we got back, what we do for our clients is after they're done doing what you're doing, so after they put their estate plan together with your company, let's just say, We then build this thing we call a My Promise kit, because I came home from Cleveland and told my wife, Donna, I said, I promise you will never have to go through what I just went through with Kyle. And so we have this fireproof safe we buy for everybody. We put it online in an encrypted site. Red files are the healthcare directive, powers of attorney, prescription drug list, medical history, surgical history. It also goes on a USB ice key, which I have sitting right here. Looks like that. Goes on their keychain. And then the rest of the files, which are also online, are everything you could imagine: life insurance statements, life insurance policies, a place to put passports, password organizer, and then the executor trustee gets limited access. So they would see Adam Zuckerman, address, phone, email, and that's it. But if something, heaven forbid, happens, we get a phone call, say, hey, we got bad news. We lost Adam. I need your help, from the executor or trustee. We flip the switch, and now everything in their financial life is available at a time when the last thing I want to worry about is money. That's it. I'll shut up. That was the fire hose. So I think that what you're doing is amazing. And I think that combining your legal background and the MBA, you kind of alluded to this a little bit, you bring a multifaceted skill set to the role. And even if it was an unfortunate reason for why you started this company. So how do you leverage this dual background to drive, innovation within the industry and with what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to build on your stats first, and then I'll hop into answer if that's okay. So you are 100% that not enough of Americans are paying attention to this problem. So only 1/3 of Americans have a will or a trust. Every single day, 10,000 Americans turn 65, which means the number of people will be over 65 will double by 2030.
What's that stat again? How many?
So every day, 10,000 Americans turn 65. And by the end of the decade, the number of people over 65 will double what it is today. The second thing is that women are outliving men by an average of 5.8 years if they're married in the country. And if you look at the older generation, the boomers, and this is not to say that every single family is like this, but if you have that traditional family value, in quotes, where the man takes care of the finances, there's an entire generation of women who are about to find themselves without their spouse, having to figure everything out on their own. And that is something that we need to get ahead of. There's a critical need for proactive financial planning and estate prep. And the third thing is the sandwich generation. So this is exactly what you talked about. 15% of middle-aged adults, that's between 40 and 59 years old, are financially supporting both their aging parents and their children at the same time.
Sandwich generation.
Sandwich generation. If you have kids, if you have a life event, if you get a new job, you should be going back and looking at your situation in life and how that relates to estate planning, because what a lot of people don't realize is that it's not a one moment in time thing. You don't make a will and then 45 years later, that will is going to be tailored for where you are at that point in time.
What are some of the other triggering events? Because this is good. This is actually something I've kind of been fuzzy on. I tell people every 5 years, just glimpse at it, just in case something's changed, opinion wise or otherwise. What would you say would be some good triggering events?
Yeah, so I'll say this. You're unique just like everybody else is. So your triggering events might be a little bit different from other people's. Sure. But high level, any major life event, that's getting married, it's getting divorced, it's buying a new house, it's moving, it's adding a new asset class, it's divesting from an asset class. Anything that has a significant impact on you or your family means that you should be evaluating this. Are your kids no longer minors and you had a will where there was a guardianship designation? Well, now you can go back to your will and update it because you don't need a guardianship designation. Have your perspectives on what to have happen at your funeral and your final resting place change. So maybe you wanted to be buried in a cemetery that was your family plot, but because you're married, you want to shift that. You don't want a traditional burial. You want water cremation instead. You want a green burial. You want something else. It's your estate plan that relates to you, your family, your spouse, your loved ones, your friends, your executor. And the reality is that if you don't take action to take control of it, the state's going to do it for you. And that process is called intestate. So there's, no matter where you are, there are jurisdiction requirements that say if you die without a will, these are the steps that are going to happen. So if you're not designating who your executor is or administrator, guess what? A local court will. So that's that. To get back to your question about how we're able to utilize the legal background and the business background, you are 100% correct that a lot of people don't want to talk about end of life. It's just a topic that quite frankly is unsettling for a lot of people. So what we're doing is we're taking a gamified approach in some aspects. So we have card games to help you start that conversation. There's actually two of them that you go on the site and get.
That's awesome.
One is one more story. I really enjoyed when I was sitting around the hospital with my dad, my family, and we're just telling stories. Hey, Dad, tell us one more story about when you were a kid. Tell us one more story about this. So we've got a card game with prompts. It's 126 cards that you can flip through in multiple different categories and learn about someone, because after they pass away, you're going to miss that opportunity to capture those memories.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah, of course.
I literally just yesterday was, tooling around on Instagram, and I found an advertisement that's being advertised for Father's Day for a company that's selling basically conversation starters.
Yeah,
for dads.
Exactly right.
And
exactly right.
Obviously it would work for moms too. So there's a marketing opportunity for you.
Absolutely. And we're getting inundated with companies that want to partner with us on this. We can do co-branded, a whole host of things for that. It's great for funeral providers, for activity rooms in nursing homes, for financial planners to have in their waiting area.
I love it.
Holiday gifts. Like, people need these conversations.
Yeah.
The second one that is more specific to estate planning is called Nothing Left Unsaid. So it's a little bit more of a deeper conversation. It goes through a lot of the things that we have in our checklist and our guides for do-it-yourselfers online, or in our estate preparation package, which helps you organize all of your information. It's been described as the most comprehensive estate preparation package there is. Doesn't make your will, but it gets all your information organized, and we can talk about that later if you want.
Yeah.
But these are quick questions. Do you have a will? Do you have a trust? How do I get into your phone? Who needs to be notified if something happens to you? Do you have a power of attorney? Do you understand what a power of attorney is? This is a definition card. We want to make it so it is very easy and accessible for people to get the information that they need on the go. Now that I'm doing this and we're focusing on this with several other people again, we're getting inundated with phone calls and emails of, can you help me with this? And we're able to move very quickly. An example of that is someone sent us an email saying, I'm sitting in the hospital. My mom bumped her head. She had to get airlifted here. And while I'm in the waiting room, the people next to me are saying how they don't know how to shut down accounts for the person that they're here for.
Oh, yeah.
Literally within a week, we have a list of nearly 100 companies that we reached out to and had responses from saying, in the event that you need to shut down your account with Amazon or with United Airlines or American Airlines, this is the steps that you need to take. We are making it really easy for you to come to us. We'll give you the information so you can go off and do it on yourself, on your own. And if you need a little bit of help, we're here to help you as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. What about aside from lack of preparation, I think the other thing we see a lot is just misconceptions that people have about estate planning, what it is, or what you have to do, how much work it's going to take, and I think that's probably aside from the fact that people don't like to talk about mortality and end of life, of course, I think the other part is probably the work they think it's going to take. So you talked about the checklists and things like that. Expand a little bit on what Buried in Work aims to address these misconceptions.
So a lot of people, quite frankly, they just don't know what to expect at all. And the reason why is because they haven't gone through it, and we want to help you with that. So we've got introductory checklists that will literally help you gather all your information, because that's step one. The analogy is, if you want to bake a cake, you can't start making the cake until you get your ingredients, right? Yeah. So step one, your ingredients to your estate planning cake is going out and gathering all your information. That includes family member information, including your pets, citizenship identification information, career education history, residential history, email, online accounts, and passwords. Very different from what it used to be. Computers, phones, devices. I mean, you have an emotional connection to your phone. If you leave home without it, you feel like, oh no, I got to go back and get my phone. And that's because it's such a key component to your life. You have to have a record and a bunch of information about financial assets or financial liabilities. If you have any business involvement, do you have insurance? What is that insurance? Is it home, property, real property, life insurance? What your tax returns are. A lot of people don't realize that you have to file a final tax return, or somebody has to file one on your behalf after you pass away.
IRD.
Yep. And then exactly right. And also your health and medical information, because oftentimes it's not that immediate event. You're going to hospice, you're going to palliative care, or having palliative care administered. There's a lot of things that you need to understand. So first thing, get your information in order. We can help you with that. The second thing is then, if you want to do it yourself, understanding what you can actually do on your own and what you should do on your own or should not. If it is a basic will, if you have less than $500,000 in assets, which is completely okay, especially for sandwich generation, As long as you understand what those requirements are in the local jurisdiction for you to make that will binding and legal, you can go out and do that on your own. So that includes questions such as, how many people have to witness it? Are there any requirements for who witnesses the will? Do I need to sign it in person? Can it be a written will? All of those things that make it legal for your jurisdiction. As you move forward, though, and you get to things like trust, revocable trust, irrevocable trust, you probably want to end up involving an attorney to help you with that, because it's not something you want to do on your own. And then you can go.
And then you said, say that one more time, what you should be working with an attorney on?
If you're working with a trust, go to an attorney. If you have a complicated family structure, you have divorce history, you have multiple children, you have a lot of different asset classes, go to an attorney. It'll save you a lot of trouble in the end, because the last thing you want is your wishes not to be carried out. If you have a very simple estate, you can theoretically do it on your own. But then there's the intangibles. So people talk about advanced directives, and that's an umbrella term for describing your preferences about how you want to live if you can't communicate them yourself. Some states, advanced directive is a legal term, and these are the specific forms and documents that you have to use. In other states, it's just an umbrella term for a bunch of documents. It could be a living will, which is not binding. It can be a healthcare proxy. It can be a do not resuscitate. It can be a power of attorney. It can be a power of attorney for financial or medical. It can be a portable medical orders, which are also called a POLST or a POLST. There's a lot of different things that you can do. So the question is, how complicated is your estate? How much information and related documentation do you have that you can bring to the table? And then you have to figure out, okay, this is complicated. I go get help. This isn't complicated. I'm going to try and do this on my own. And then you have to revisit and update every so on.
I love that, because most of the companies that I've been solicited by in the past, say, 5 years, that are I would call competitors of yours, for lack of a better word, they're talking about all the things that you should do, that you can do, but they're not talking about the things you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I think that's very honest, unbiased, and objective of you. So if you've got a will, simple powers of attorney, call it a sweetheart will, first marriage, couple kids, net worth is total net worth under 500K. You could probably do it all yourself using Buried in Work. If you
yes and no. I want to be very clear though. And
please do.
We won't make your will for you. We won't make your trust for you.
Okay.
Our entire premise is estate organization, so you can gather the information. So in the event something happens to you, your family members, your loved ones, your executor, your heirs, the administrator, whoever comes after you has all the information that they need from what is your estate, what do you want to have happen before and after you pass away, and then have the information readily available for them when they pass.
Got it.
You'll learn from us, you'll get your stuff organized, and then you'll bounce out to the subject matter experts that we can connect you with that'll help you do that, and actually saves you money. So an average estate planning attorney in the country costs $150 to $400 an hour. A sweetheart will kit, estate planning kit, depending on who you talk to, $1,500 to $5,000. If you're getting billed hourly and you go to them, you're going to spend hours and hours and hours possibly going through all this information, so then they can get a good understanding of who you are, so they can actually customize and tailor it to you. What we do is, if you take the time to get one of our packages and fill it out completely, and you bring that to your attorney, you bring that to your financial advisor, they're then empowered without having to spend more time to give you a better result. So effectively, you're saving billable hours on the back end, which makes our products effectively free. But we don't want to make your will for you. Like, that's not something that we're interested in.
Sorry, I'm just taking a note here. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
Just because you threw out the stat about sweetheart wills around the country, average cost, obviously different states are different, cost of living is different, $1,500 to $5,000. What do you see, say, a living trust, family trust? What's that? What do you see range?
It really depends on the person. I don't want to throw out numbers there, because the attorneys that you're speaking with, it can be part of a package. Generally speaking, attorneys...
I'll let you know if I see any red dots on your shirt.
Yeah, no, hopefully not. Generally speaking, an attorney that is practicing estate law, probate law, they don't want to come in and only do one component of it.
Sure.
Because it opens them up to, I want to say liability, but it might not be actual liability legally, of giving you something that can conflict with something that somebody else has done. There's a joke among many people in the legal community of, oh, I love it when somebody does it themselves because I get to charge them twice as much to fix their problems.
Yeah.
So if you say, oh, I just need a trust, they're probably going to come back to you and say, you also need your will, you also need XYZ. And there are so many different variations. So I'm going to load up something on the website real quick. We've got guides to help people figure things out, as we've discussed. And one of our guides and checklists is Introduction to Wills and Trusts. So let me pull this up.
While you're pulling that up, I mean, that joke, by the way, it might not sound funny to some people who, don't like, or maybe they've already been gouged before in the past and they feel like they've been out, they've been, I don't know, unrighteously taken advantage of perhaps. But I think that from the attorney's perspective, what ends up happening is, and this is not advice, by the way, I'm kind of tongue in cheek making this comment. So I'm just prefacing here, but in some cases, dying intestate might be better than having your own will that you wrote on a napkin. And by the way, if you're doing it on a napkin, make sure it's all white. Don't use like a Subway napkin or like something with writing on it. I'm kidding. But that's the first thing. The second thing, I think I probably didn't ask the question right about the trust. I wasn't asking specifically what do people charge just for the trust, but I'm saying if an attorney across the country from highest to lowest, and it's okay if we still don't want to answer this question, but from highest to lowest, if they do the will, powers of attorney, healthcare directive, all that, and a trust, is there a range for that out there?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably $2,500 to $10,000, depending on the attorney that you're going with. Okay. But again, that is attorney specific and your situation specific.
Yep.
And the reason why there is that big range, and it can get a lot more expensive than that, is I'm just going to give a few names of different types of trust that you can get: revocable trust, irrevocable trust, special needs trust, charitable trust, testamentary trusts, bypass trust, charitable remainder trust, charitable lead trust, crummy trust, dynasty trust, generation skipping trust, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on.
Adam, I'm having flashbacks to my CFP exam.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we have to stop for a second. No, I'm kidding.
Your head explodes. It's really complicated. But if you get your information organized and you take it to somebody who this is really what they enjoy, they simplify the process for you. And the worst thing that you can do is do nothing.
Right.
That's the worst thing that you can do.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And what I see mostly at our office, what we see most are living trust, family trust, essentially, AB trusts.
Mm-hmm. Special needs trust, probably.
Say again?
Special needs trust.
I was just going to say special needs trust. Mm-hmm. Charitable trust. Those would probably be the most common, I think. Yeah. But yeah, anyways, let's move on here. Okay. Are you using any, we'll say, technology? I know everybody wants to talk about AI these days. Are you using any specific technologies, new technologies that would differentiate you from, say, other companies who are trying to compete with you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think that having other companies in the space, first of all, is a great thing. It means that it is a big market, as it is. What we offer for some people might not be the right thing, but what we offer for a lot of people is perfect. One of the things that we want to do is make our introductory materials as accessible as possible for other people. So we have a bunch of guides. And remember, we're not just doing estate planning organization, but we're also doing end-of-life tasks as well. So we have guides and checklists free on the website that is funeral and end-of-life traditions, for example. So if you're Christian, Hindu, Jewish, even LGBTQ+, Muslim, secular, you name it, we've got a guide for you. And we've taken all of those guides and then we've informed specialized sub-chat GPTs where now you can go in and have a question and answer typed. So you don't have to read through everything to answer your questions. You can have a typed conversation or even the voice add-in if you have access to that. Our goal is to use technology to make this information more accessible for people and stopping before we're saying we're going to go and draft your will, draft your trust using AI, because I think that having that personal touch gives you a better end result.
Yeah, for sure. What about offline before we started the podcast today? You mentioned empowering individuals of all ages, to navigate estate planning. I think sometimes there's a misconception that, you don't really need an estate plan if you're young, right? Because nothing's going to happen to you. I think that I've already kind of put the punchline in there. But, how does your platform cater to different demographic groups? I mean, you just kind of alluded to it a little bit there, but every group has a unique need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So foundationally speaking, everybody needs to get their information just in order and organized. And what we're doing is creating access points regardless of who you are. It is web optimized. If you want to look at this on your cell phone, you can. If you want to sit down in front of your computer, you can do that too. Our products, like the card games that we mentioned, anybody can use that. It doesn't matter what age you are. But we've actually taken specific steps to make them more accessible. So instead of using cheap paper, we're using effectively like playing card stock that's easy to grip for people that have less dexterity in their fingers. Sure. So really neat stuff there. In our estate preparation package, We have it so people like my mom, because everything goes through the mom filter with me. Hi, mom, if you're listening. She probably wants to write down all of her information in the booklet or in the packet. It comes with 2 different notebooks. It comes with a document storage system that's fire resistant, water resistant in case something happens.
Wow.
You can run out the door. But the tabs are high visibility, made for people to be able to see what they're actually doing. It's designed using professional designers, so there's enough space to actually write all your responses. But for people that are my generation and others, more tech forward, we also provide it on a USB drive, USB-C, USB-A, so you can fill everything out on your computer and reprint place if you want. So a lot of the things that you guys are doing in your company as well, we're doing the same or similar things in terms of process where we want to meet people at the place where they are to help them. And hopefully the resources that we're creating, whether they're directories, whether it's for businesses, end of life care, hospice care, you name it, like we're helping people out. And it's a lot of fun, as I said earlier. I didn't expect to be in this industry.
Fulfilling,
It's awesome.
Yeah. And you're not only helping on the back end, but I think it's a little bit, well, not a little, it's more comprehensive, first of all. And second of all, you're doing a lot on the front end, which I love how, when you said it pays for itself, because the time and money you save in attorney fees to be 100% prepared walking in there, like, I don't want to say plug and play, like they're doing tax preparation, but you're making their lives a whole lot easier. You're making the attorneys' lives easier. You're making the preparation for, heaven forbid something happened to one or both of a spouse, let's just say, you're making that easier. So now this is all great stuff. And what's your opinion? Sorry, were you going to say something else?
Yeah, I think the best way to put that, I was actually talking with the former Deputy Chief Technology Officer. That might not be his exact title at NASA.
It's a really long title.
It is. He's a very smart person that used to be one of the people that overseeing like going to Mars for space exploration, planetary XYZ for NASA. Smart guy. He was looking through everything. He went, Adam, this is the perfect gift for people. Leave your heirs the gift of organization. And the reality is that if I ask you to go and write down all of your credit card information, all of your bank account information, what loans you have, whether owed to you or you owe to someone else, it'll take you X amount of time to do that. If I ask your wife to do it for you and you can watch her on camera or like one of those police rooms where you can see through the mirror, how efficient do you think that person's going to be?
Right.
Not very.
I think you need to have the swinging light bulb, though, if we're going to do it that way.
Exactly. So the cop coming in, why aren't you doing this fast enough?
Slamming chairs,
right?
Jack, you can't leave until it's done.
She's never going to leave. Like you can't. There's always something else. So if you actually care about the people that are going to come after you, if you are 15 years old, 16 years old, 18, 25, 35, 102, take the time to do something, because that something is going to make their lives a lot easier. And they don't want to learn on the fly after you pass. That's a time of grieving.
Oh my God.
It's a very stressful time period. That is the worst time to go through this for the first time.
Personal experience, I can tell you, I completely agree, 120%. And I love the idea of giving it as a gift, because one of the things we do run into here a fair amount is clients when they're in their, say, 40s, 50s, 60s, their parents are still alive, and they just, it's a different generation, when you're talking about people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, a lot more private, don't want to disclose as much. It's kind of taboo to have that discussion, especially at the kitchen table, but let alone one-on-one. So I think a subtle gift of, here you go, this will make everybody's lives easier is kind of a nice little nudge that isn't so confrontational, perhaps.
We've had a bunch of parents that are 70 years and older buy this for themselves and then for their children.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes it's they come back and buy a second one after they start doing it. We've had children, sandwich generation, buying it for them, and their parents, or just their parents. But a lot of people have come to us and said, I don't know how to start this conversation with my parents. It's really hard to do that. What do I do? So we created a quiz. It's called the Estate Preparedness Quiz. It takes 2.5 minutes. It'll give you a very quick score. You can do it for your estate or for someone else's. So if you want to do it for your parents' estate, you'd answer in that regard. And it'll say, you are a 4 of 6, you are a 9 out of 9. And if you are a 7 out of 10, or always out of 10, so 7 out of 10, 10 out of 10, whatnot, you can say, Mom, Dad, I just took this quiz and I'm concerned about the results. Can we have a chat about this? And there's your entryway. Figure out a way to just start a conversation. It's that starting it that's really difficult.
Is that quiz a hyperlink? Like is it a URL to like a job form or something like that?
Yeah, there's two ways you can get to it. You can go to the webpage, buriedinwork.com, and just scroll down. I think it's the second section. Or in the resources section, there's a link, take the preparedness quiz. And the link is buriedinwork.com/how-prepared-r-u-quiz. So how prepared are you with hyphens in between the words?
Okay.
But
yeah.
on the website, super easy to figure out. It's a type form that's embedded into the website.
That is a great starting point. I love that. What about kind of last question here, and then I'll give you one more kind of a catch-all question here. Make sure I didn't miss anything because I'm sure I did. But there's always talk about things changing in the estate planning world. You know, the exclusion, things like that. I mean, what do you see changing? You know, what's the future look like for estate planning? You're speculating, I realize, but you know, your thoughts.
Obviously speculating. I think there's two sides to that question. One is the legislation that can always change. That's not something that you and I are going to impact today or tomorrow. That's a tax code, estate tax issues, everything else. There's a lot of industries that lobby against that. The DC hat. The other side is I think that as technology advances, it's going to present opportunities for people to organize their information better that will then streamline the process later. And what I mean by that is I would love to see it a platform, and maybe we'll get to it one day. Maybe somebody else will do it. I really don't care who does it, but it just needs to get done, where you'll have all your accounts and all you have to do is upload the death certificates, and then everything's going to process individually. So you don't have to go and notify all the companies individually. It'll be where the funeral, if you're going with them, will already have the information that you need. So it'll be transferred over to them automatically, as opposed to, oh, great, now I have to fill out this form to notify them. Like, we actually went through that process. So we created a free funeral home notification form. So when you call them, you'll have all the information that they need. But all of these things that we're gathering as resources, I want to start seeing all those dotted lines between everything. So when one thing happens with a check mark, you can then just start notifying everybody else, and the complicated processes suddenly become a lot less intimidating.
Yeah, love it. What about what didn't I ask?
Oh gosh, you didn't ask me.
We've been talking for about 30 minutes here. I feel like I haven't had to have missed something. Is there anything else you'd want people to know about either just what you're doing in terms of building this package out for people, preparation that I didn't ask?
I think that the one thing that a lot of people don't appreciate is that, or realize, is that their perspective is different from other people's perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll oftentimes hear, I wish you would talk to my dad on my behalf, or have a conversation. They go, oh, I'm totally organized. My son has this key to my safe. It's not enough. Where you may have that information, you really need to put yourself in the shoes of somebody else, because their perspective oftentimes is different from yours. It's kind of like that telephone game where you start with somebody's ear, and by the time it gets to the end of the line, it's totally different. That's what happens with estate planning. You think it'll be easy for people. It's not going to be. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you do start on this journey, because it is a journey, remember, it's not something that you just start and then it's done with. You have to continually update it over time. You have to let the people know who are going to be impacted. So wife, child, spouse, kid, husband, whoever it is, even attorney, medical providers. I have started, this is how it will impact you. Because if you do something and they have no idea that you've done anything, they're either going to be very surprised, or worst case scenario, they don't even find out about it, and they're on a scavenger hunt for something that they don't know what they're looking for. Scavenger
hunt's a good analogy. Because that's kind of it's how it feels, but it's not an easy one. It's a difficult scavenger hunt. It takes a lot of time, and then if your family lives in another city, or let alone another state, that makes it interesting. Having another country even. There you go, another country. Having two co-executors, or three or five. I'll leave you with this one tidbit.
Yeah, please. There's a lot of things that you might not recognize or even realize. We helped one widow save $403,000 because she went through one of our checklists. One of her husband was in the hospital, wasn't paying bills, and it turns out that her life insurance policy for him was going to lapse in 2 days.
Oh my God.
By going through the checklist, making sure that everything's up to date and what's not, she's able to call, get an extension, and get that paid. So literally $403,000 by doing one thing. But there's a lot of other things that are very, very technical that you might not realize. One story that I love to reference is somebody in Virginia was married. He got divorced. He had 2 kids. He updated his will. So if he gets hit by the bus in that story and something happens, his kids get 50% of everything. And I asked him, what about your bank accounts? Did you update those? He says, what do you mean? And I said, do you have payable and death beneficiaries? He says, yeah, it's probably still my ex-wife.
Probably.
But I updated the will, so that's okay.
No.
Payable and death beneficiaries on bank accounts, insurance policies, everything else, they get paid out before your will and other documents get processed because it's a contractual obligation.
Right.
So he didn't realize his ex-wife was going to get all his cash in his accounts. His kids would get the remainder after the estate does what it has to do. Speaking with experts, going through these checklists, doing things with the help of other people, it's not to say you can't learn it on your own, but don't reinvent the wheel. There's a lot you might not realize that can impact you in some pretty interesting ways.
Yeah, I've got a friend in Tennessee who second marriage, where they were on vacation, had an accident. He was non-responsive in the hospital with his second wife, went to get the healthcare directive, and it was his ex-wife.
Yeah.
She couldn't make, his wife couldn't make any decisions for him. And so his ex was in a different state and had to be called and gotten a hold of, and which wasn't easy to do. So it's insane how involved this is. And I think, again, because it's perceived as being so complex, and I guess it's not complex, right? Not to use a double negative there, but it is complex. But I think that what you're building here is really amazing and making it a whole lot easier for people. And everybody who doesn't like a checklist and a quiz, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And that story, like your friend, it goes on and on and on. This week, I heard about somebody who he had beneficiary or benefits from a previous employer, and that listed his ex-wife. So his current wife had to go to his ex-wife and say, hey, just letting you know, you're about to get all of this money. If it's okay with you, could you give it to us? Like, can you imagine having that conversation?
That actually just happened to us last year with a client. A very quick cancer situation where somebody passed away quickly, second marriage, and there wasn't, I don't want to say time to prepare, but they missed one. They got everything except the life insurance policy. They missed it. So unbelievable. But it happens, that's why you got to do it. And what's great though is once you've done it, first of all, it's done, right? For now, it's done. The hardest part's over with. We're talking 90%. The 10% that's left is just babysitting it over time. If things change, like you said, if you hit those triggering events. But that's it. I mean, so your peace of mind and stress levels can go down. You can feel so liberated and refreshed once you finish something like this. So thank you so much for coming on. This has been so much fun and so informative. Probably more so than many of the things that we've done in the past. So if any of you would like to get a hold of Adam, you can message him on LinkedIn, get a hold of him there, contact him on LinkedIn. You can also go to his website, which is buriedinwork.com. You'll also find other links and contact information below in the podcast notes, as well as the YouTube notes below. But as I always say, there's thousands and thousands of podcasts out there, and you chose to give ours a listen or a watch today. So thank you so much for doing so, and have a great one. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the Retirement Fiduciary Podcast. To see any charts or images that were mentioned on this show, to check out additional articles, videos, and other educational resources, or to set up an intro call with your host, Adam Koos, just head over to libertizedwealth.com. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. None of our shows engage in rendering legal, financial, tax, or other professional services. Always talk to a certified financial planner or fee-only fiduciary financial advisor before implementing any of the ideas shared in this episode.